You don't even see my point at all?
No, I don't. Okay.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, I started. Okay.
Hey guys, welcome back to Himbo Horror. I say welcome back because we recorded a lost episode that will potentially be released in the future.
Yeah,
I was really good. Eric was kind of mid,
for the
but
archives.
for the archives, yeah, there was
Yeah.
some audio issues, and I mean, maybe there'll be someday there'll be a Patreon, or you could send Tally feet pics and he'll hook it up. But we're back, but we're also here for the first time. This is really,
We had like a test run and it was great.
yeah.
And everybody was like, oh my God, be the leader of our cults.
They loved us. Yeah, they
Yeah.
loved us and we loved us, but again, technical issues being what they may. But yeah, this is Himbo Horror, the only horror podcast where the testosterone is overflowing to the point that it might actually breach your computer monitor. Okay.
Yeah,
We're
my
going to talk
pecs grew
about,
just hearing that.
they literally did. And I'm going to be
See?
honest with you, Eric, something else grew when I saw the pecs grow, but we'll leave that for another conversation. Today, we're going to be talking about our respective favorite horror antagonists. Which our last subject was a little less divisive, I think, than this one, and because we've kind of prepped each other just a little bit on what we're talking about today. So expect a little
Yeah.
spice out of the short guy section, man.
Well, okay. So first off, fuck off, frick off. I'll edit it out. It's fine. Thanks, YouTube. Listen, my thing is that we keep picking topics that we agree on, and it's like we're avoiding the topics that we know we're gonna fight about. And so I feel like there might be a little bit of a disagreement today because I've thought quite a bit about this topic. Favorite horror antagonist. Doug gave me a heads up on who he's choosing. I gave him a heads up. But generally speaking, we agree. We're picking pretty safe picks. But I feel like we're going to start an argument pretty soon. I feel like it's coming. I feel like I'm just angry at you all the time anyway.
Yeah, I was,
So,
I was
like,
gonna
it's
say,
just
I was
like-
gonna say that the resentments are bubbling up, and Eric's like, I don't care what he says, I'm yelling at this motherfucker today.
Yeah, I'm going to argue. Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna talk. So our favorite, and again, it's a subjective thing. It's our favorite. Neither one of us is claiming that this is the best of all time. So keep it out of the comments. We're not saying that your decision to choose whoever you choose from whatever indie back room movie that no one's ever seen, like that's fine. That can be yours. But for us, these are our favorites. So I am going with the legendary, the iconic, the recognized by every Joe Schmo on the street, Texas Chainsaw Massacre's own Leatherface. That's my guy.
Yeah. And why is that? Why? Tell me.
Well,
So just so everybody knows, Doug and I have a long-standing thing where I just don't think Texas Chainsaw Massacre is that great of a movie. It's certainly a terrible franchise, and I think I agree with you if we have these conditions. If you tell me you're freezing Leatherface in time in 1974, then yes, I agree with you. He's an iconic, amazing, well done character. If we start going past that, then I have problems today, Douglas.
can we at least lump in the Netflix canon sequel? Because that movie,
That's
fucking
fine.
ruled.
Yeah, and I'll tell you
It
why.
ruled,
And I'll tell you why I think that's fine. But
Okay.
anyways, this is your character. You tell me why Leatherface is so iconic to you, Douglas.
Okay, so I'm gonna first of all, obviously, I have a lot of personal bias in this conversation because Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original, is my literal all-time favorite movie. It's my favorite horror movie. It's the king of slashers, and I realized that Psycho was the first slasher, but Texas Chainsaw Massacre put slashers on the map and created, in my mind, a jumping-off point for an entire like subgenre of horror. The actual character of Leatherface is such like, to me, it's like such a deep and like incredible like story. Like this he's basically like he's a human instrument, right? He doesn't know any better. He's just doing what his family tells him to do. Like, so
Yeah.
it's one of those things that like when you think of a Michael Myers or you think of a Jason Voorhees, those are like pure evil. Michael Myers was like some dark force created this evil entity. Jason Voorhees, he died in such a tragic manner. He came back with a vengeance. But with Bubba, even Leatherface, I don't want to call him Bubba, and I'll get to that in a second. But Leatherface he's just a product of bad parenting. And we can all relate to bad parenting. It's 2023. We go to the grocery store. Bad parenting's everywhere. But this is like bad parenting to an insane degree. But he's almost like an anti-hero in the sense that like you have to hold him accountable, but like he's a simple man who's just doing what he was taught to do. He's just trying to be a part of his family. Like who doesn't want to impress
Right.
their family? Who doesn't want to perform for their family? So just the character itself is like he's a tragedy inside of like a horror, just an absolutely horrific entity, right? So that to me is really cool. And then obviously the original movie is just such an icon as itself. And then the Netflix reboot, the next series, not sorry, which is the only canon sequel. I thought that they did the character a pretty fair measure of justice. Again, I'm not going to argue that Netflix Texas Chainsaw Massacre should have won any awards, but at the same time, it was a fun movie. It was a good movie, an entertaining movie. It didn't hold up to the original standard, which and to me, it's almost like I'm glad they didn't try to because they would have just flopped. Unless you got Ty West directing, you're not going to hit the same notes that they hit in the OG TCM, right? So now this I've been ready for this. I've been ready to drop this on you, Tally.
Okay.
All right, this is why to me he is the penultimate. He is the horror
Penultimate.
icon.
Tell me everything.
Because it's
Yeah.
penultimate. I don't think that's the right word.
I don't know, but I love it so much. I'm saying that shit forever now.
I'm pretty sure penultimate is like the episode right before the finale of a show. And I just used it because it had the word ultimate. It sounded dope. You don't get to fact check me. I got 100 push-ups in a row.
It's the quintultimate, brother.
Yeah, the quintessential. Yeah. So and this is why. It's because Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original release. And then for the next 40 years,
40 plus, yeah.
give or take, the movies were hot dog shit.
Okay, thank you.
Awful.
Yep.
Awful. All the reboots, all the reimaginings, like they have value and we'll probably go through all of them eventually, but like none of them would ever be considered an unironic good film until Netflix released the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre sequel, which again, even that one is a very divisive film. So it's not even like that was a slam dunk, right? So you've got this guy. If you go up to any person on the street and you show them a picture of Leatherface, they know who that is. Like he's transcended any sort of horror community. He's not a niche character. He is a horror icon in the eyes of the common man as well as the horror fanatic. And they were able to fucking pull that off with one movie in 1974.
Yes.
So he has, in spite of how hard they've tried to ruin that IP, they've tried to destroy the legacy of Leatherface, man remains. Chainsaws revving, the chili's bubbling, right? This guy, that's why to me, he's the penultimate, he's the quintessential horror antagonist, because despite the fact that they tried to ruin everything, he remains.
So there's a lot to unpack there. Let's start with just his attributes. Big dude, chainsaw, the butcher apron. I think he looks like a badass, right? Like the skin mask, right? He looks like a cool guy, and he's easy to like just as a horror fan, like, oh shit, he's gonna do some crazy stuff. I think that Leatherface is unique, that he's not unique in this sense, but I like the fact that he's nonverbal. I think that gives him a lot of mystery. A lot of it is he expresses through himself. And then Gunnar Hansen talked about, the original guy that played Leatherface, talked about how he changes his mask to kind of express himself, right? So he has the lady mask when he's helping cooking dinner. He wants to be helpful. He has the pretty woman mask at dinner, and so like he'll change his mask, which I think is cool for him. But I think you nailed it with my problem with Leatherface, is that if you go back to 1974, I have my own kind of gripes with that film. Less gripes with the film, it's more of just the gripes with the time. I think those movies should be broken up into its own era, and it's hard to compare those movies of then to today. But the character itself, when you started getting into Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, it made it campy. When you got into Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, and made it just boring. And then you get into like, I'm sure I'm missing some, but then you have like the 2003 remake. Then you have the 2006 sequel, which was The Beginning. I think it was Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Beginning. And then they tried to do so much with his character that just took it away from simple guy, loyal to his family, is killing people to defend, doing what he thinks he's supposed to do. So I think what makes him so terrifying, and the same thing that made him terrifying in 1974 holds true today, is that he's not a supernatural being. He's not a demon. He doesn't have superpowers from the Cult of Thorn like Mike Myers. Like, he is just a guy, and that's believable, and that's you can buy into that. I just have a problem with what they've done since then. So, like I said, if we freeze him in time in 1974, and say that that's our champion, then I'm down for that. Just the franchise itself has just kind of ruined a lot of the respect I had for Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I didn't really understand the whole Jedediah story arc. I thought that he could have been way more metal. I also didn't understand how they tried to give Leatherface like his own love arc, where and like in TCM2. You know what I mean? Like, I just stopped. They kept trying to do too much with them, and that's why I think I like the Netflix version so much. Is like they kept it simple, right? Show me where someone's threatening the family, and then show me a big bad dude with the chainsaw whoops ass. Then we're good. Then like that, you don't have to do anything extra with that, right? It's when they got into all the extra stuff that I just kind of checked out.
It's like I'm with you, and again, I think I made it clear. I literally said like that's why I think he's the guy, because like all those movies tried really hard to kill the legacy, but like I don't think you can hold bad sequels over any like horror icon at this point. Like, I mean, if you're gonna, are you gonna rate Michael Myers on like the Rob Zombie reboots?
Yes.
Right? Like, are you gonna? Oh, you are.
Yeah. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take something that says it's a horror franchise, and over the last 40 years of the franchise, 20 years of the franchise, or whatever, I'm saying that, like, look, we're talking about the character, right? So the character in and of itself, I'm just explaining how I like the 1974 version. I really don't like the version that they introduced in the other movies. I think it's a fair statement. When we get into the thing of like franchises, yeah, I will take a franchise and say, okay, that was bad. Was it as bad as this, or was it as bad as that?
Like, does Michael Myers' legacy get tarnished because of some poor some bad masks?
If they were to have Mike Myers fall in love with a girl, and they were to have Mike Myers, what else did he do? Like, if they were to have Mike Myers, like if they were to make a bunch of campy movies with Mike Myers, like, which they did, but I mean, I'm saying that, like, yeah, I will still stack that against Mike Myers in general. So the character, yes. If you were to try to lump in the character and say, okay, we're going to talk about Mike Myers, we're going to include all these Halloweens, and that's what's going to give us, I didn't tarnish it. They did, right? And so, but if we're saying I'm going to nail it down, I'm going to specify, I'm talking about the original Halloween. I'm talking about the original Chucky. I'm talking about the original Friday the 13th. Then yeah, like then we can narrow that down.
I just feel like any horror franchise, any horror icon from a franchise was like, you always talk about being a product of the time, right? Oh, it was a great movie for the product of the time. Yeah, the 70s were fucking awesome for horror, right? And then the 80s, was pretty decent. And the 90s and the 2000s, that's when things started to like go off the rails. And like all these franchises were subject to it. The OG Child's Plays were so solid. And then like fast forward, and there's Brad of Chucky, which is like, again,
well, and I still think those are good. By the way,
they were really fun. Yeah, we'll talk about that again too.
But I think that when all I'm doing is I'm saying, hey, this quarterback in his 20s was really good, and I want to talk about. But then he went on to this next team in his late 20s, and he sucked. And then he tried to retire at this team, and he sucked. I'm saying if we're talking about this person's career, then yeah, it's all tarnish, right? If I say I'm going to freeze him in time. I'm going to freeze him in time on this team at this time. It was the best season ever.
We're going to scare off like 89% of the fucking nerds in this chat right now. But I mean, nobody's talking about Peyton Manning's like final run with the Broncos. Nobody cares that he couldn't get a pass 8 yards down the field, because he was like one of the greatest of all time, bro.
I'm sorry. I thought this was Himbo horror, and we could talk about sports ball on occasion.
We can. Okay. I guarantee somebody out there has sex that's going to be like, yeah, ball. But like, no, I'm like Peyton Manning's and Brett Favre's like horrible Jets run doesn't take anything away from Brett Favre.
But as a horror, wait, hold on, Doug. As a horror fan, you don't think it's fair for me to say, hey, if we're going to talk about that character, let's freeze him in time so we can get on the same page. If you're saying if we're talking about Leatherface across his legacy, across 40 years of movies, then he's not a great character.
He is. He's still better. He's still better than most, just because he's so far ahead from that first outing, the first offering, that like anything you knock off, he's still going to end up.
But the problem is that you have movies today, right? And that's the problem with Leatherface, is that Leatherface in 1974 is this chainsaw wielding, skin face wearing monster shot in 16 millimeter film was terrifying. We have been so numbed in horror today because we've had so many different things thrown at us, and we've seen so many different. That it's not that scary anymore. Slashers have taken a back seat, generally speaking, unless they're entertaining. They're not scary like they used to be, right? It's not like when Scream first came out, or I Know What You Did Last Summer. No one's freaking
No,
out
you're
about,
right.
you know
You're
what I mean?
right. 'Cause, like think of like an iconic like recent release slasher. I mean, the first one that comes to mind for me is Ty West X, which was like a very good movie, but like that wasn't scary. It was just a unique concept and one that was really super interestingly directed,
It was
right?
entertaining.
So
Yeah, it's like you had to
yeah,
be unique with it for me to care. And so that's all
yeah,
I'm saying is that Leatherface, I'm not going to be the guy as a horror fan because I love Leatherface and I love Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I'm not going to be the guy that stands up here and says nope, bad character. I'm just saying that in my love for that character demands that I separate him from everything else that they've done. He has to be locked in
demands
19
it
it
demands it.
has to
He's
be
so
locked in
you are so
1974
fucking dramatic, bro.
because
I love it.
if we are talking about
Demands attention.
if we're talking about 2003 Leatherface and we're talking about 2006 Leatherface and we're talking
I
about
know those guys.
Jedediah
Sure,
and
sure, sure.
they're just dog shit. And so, and then Leatherface is not good in those. He's not good in those. They didn't, I mean, the kill scenes aren't as cool. Like he's not doing as many cool things. So I don't know. Like I think that when they made him a little bit mysterious. They made him simple. And I think it's all you need for a character like that.
Remember the one? I remember which one it is. I think it was the 2007 one or something. No, it was the beginning. You talked about earlier. The
2006.
beginning.
Yeah.
Remember when he like got fired from his job, and that was why he lost his mind? You remember that when he
At
was
the meat
like,
factory. Yeah.
he's like working at the meat plant, and the guy like aggressively fires him, and it's like,
Tries to kill his boss. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. So
it was
I don't
just
know. They
like
just
so
did too
stupid,
much.
dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. That was one of
So
the worst ones of them all.
So I mean, I want to say that like I love Leatherface. I love Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I don't love the franchise. That's a franchise I will gladly poop upon. They did a lot of things wrong in it, and so but the character in and of itself is cool. I feel like the reason the 2017 remake on Netflix I think worked well for me. Like I'm not saying it's going to win any Oscars, but I'm saying that I think they made it simple, right? Get me to the point where someone threatens his family as soon as possible, and then straight from that, get me to him whooping butt with a axe, or excuse me, a
Nice.
chainsaw. Yeah.
All right. We've talked enough. I feel like if I was gonna like wrap up what we said is like my iconic horror antagonist, my favorite for selfish reasons, for personal reasons, Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, 1974. However, it does kind of sound like Tally is on board because of I obviously put the technicalities in there. I put the asterisk that we're only including the canon films, which is 2 films.
I was just trying to figure out if we were gonna fight or not, and that's all I wanted to know.
We got close. We did it. We made it through, dude.
It's-
Good thing I didn't choose Art the Clown from Terrifier. We would have still been talking forever.
I cannot wait for that episode. He is ass. So yeah, we'll do that. We'll get to that. That might be a bonus episode after this one. Yeah, you're wrong for having it.
You're wrong.
Your feelings are not validated.
Right,
No.
let's talk about your horror antagonist icon. I can't wait
Okay.
to hear.
Well, so Doug went the easy route, so he thought, with Texas Chainsaw Massacre Leatherface. I am submitting to you my favorite horror antagonist, Patrick Bateman from American Psycho. I hope you know who I'm talking. You're a horror fan, right? You know who Patrick Bateman, American Psycho, Christian Bale. You sure? Do you know? You know who that is?
We talk about him all the time. You don't have to.
Do you know who that is?
Yes, I know who that is, Eric.
I just want to make sure that we know what we're talking about.
Yes, I've seen the new Batmans, man. I know who he is. All right.
Okay, great. Good. Okay, yeah. So Patrick Bateman from American Psycho is obsessed with materialism, consumerism. He is a Wall Street guy, a yuppie, as they say, young urban professional, and he's consistently trying to get the next best thing, the next best suit, the nicest feature in his apartment. Everything is about clout. Everything is about stature and status. And in the movie, he slowly starts to go crazy by this. So the reason I love him so much is that he's pretty complex. I'm reading the book currently, and so it's really interesting to see the book versus the movie. It's similar and different in other ways, but it was a good enough movie that I wanted to go read the book. But I think he's complex. I think that he's unique. There's not really a lot of killers like him. I think that the movie ends with ambiguity, and I like that. So I'd love to theorize what you think, but yeah, I think he's just a unique character, and we just don't see much like him. And he's got some banging one-liners. He's got some really unique kind of kill scenes. And again, he's just a guy that's slowly starting to go crazy. You hate him, but you also empathize. But it's also a movie where consumerists are like the enemy, right? And so you see hints of like in Chucky 3, or excuse me, in I think it's Chucky 3, in one of the Chuckies, you see kind of like that. Oh, it's the original, yeah. Yeah, Child's Play. Okay, chill out. Where like the rush for the holiday season, it talks about, it's kind of like a subtext of consumerism. You've got like Halloween 3, where like there's like the crazed salesperson that's brainwashing kids with like marketing and things like that or whatever. So you see it a lot. You see it, but not like the consumer in this movie is the bad guy. The amount of times he could have got caught if someone was paying attention outside of just what kind of suit he was wearing or where he got his travel bag or where, you know what I mean? Or if they even recognized who they were because they all kind of didn't remember each other. I think that's interesting. So anyways, I'm ranting, but Patrick Bateman's my guy. I love him. He's awesome.
Ironic that you would idolize a character in a film trashing consumerism. You're the only person I know that collects fucking Nike shoes, bro. Like, that's pretty weird. But no, okay. So
he's also like in the business world, which I am.
Honestly, I was gonna make that joke. I was gonna make that joke too. I was like, I feel like you're a Patrick Bateman enjoyer because I feel like you relate to the character a lot, and it makes me maybe even want to ask some follow-up questions about where you were last weekend.
Yeah, right. Establish an alibi.
Why you've been taking so many trips to St. Louis? Just things like that. But
that's why I'm such a geek. Everything I do is recorded on camera and film. You know what I mean?
Yeah. We have to have an alibi always, bro. But yeah, no, I'm with you. Patrick Bateman is an iconic horror antagonist. Now, again, if this was a competition, I'm still winning, because if you go to the guy on the street and ask them, what do you know about Patrick Bateman? You show him a picture of Patrick Bateman, they'll be like, the Batman guy. Like, he's not American Psycho. Now, I want
Christian Bale. Yeah.
Christian Bale. I'm in all right.
Go ahead. Continue.
It's okay. I ran 4 miles today.
Are you the guy on the street? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm literally the guy on the street. I lived there because my fucking computer broke and I had to get a new graphics card. But yeah, no. So, circling back to what you were saying about the film, an incredible film. Like, it was like miles ahead of, I think, anything we'd really seen from the horror genre before. Because like you said, it's like a thought exercise, right? The whole film is a thought exercise. Like, the trope about horror movies is that they're simple and that they're easy to consume and that any idiot will enjoy it. And it's just like, I'm gonna run upstairs, I'm gonna hide in the tent, it's like this whole thing. And then like this movie comes out and it's like a masterpiece.
Yeah.
In terms of like psychological.
There's a killer on the loose. I better take a shower.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's funny, it's interesting, it's unique. It's just one of the best movies ever, probably, like, especially if we're talking horror genre and even beyond the horror genre. I think it's one of those films that, like, you're probably not going to find a dude who hates horror movies that enjoys Texas Chainsaw Massacre, even the original, but you're definitely going to find people that don't like horror movies that love American Psycho.
Right.
And even so much so as I've had people push back, be like, well, that's not a horror movie. That's a thriller. That's a dramatic thriller.
Well, and there's parts of it. I mean, again, not a lot of gore, right? There's some blood splatter, and that's about it. I think that when I talk about him being complex, I think that when you like unpack what he actually is doing, right? He is being driven mad by materialism. He's being driven mad, and you don't really know. I mean, if you actually look into like his lore, right? If you were to go back to like his childhood and his books, like, go back to the books and stuff, then yeah, he showed signs of like serial killer type of tendencies. But this is something that what the movie depicts it as. Guy slowly starts to lose his shit, and what that looks like. And I think that his desperate need for control, his like anger that he gets from like he feels like he's falling behind even though he's so far ahead compared to other people around him. Like, I think that we can all relate to like, feeling like we're falling behind and comparing to ourselves around other people. But like, you can't really, okay. Sorry, just me. That's fine.
I took Alpha Academy 3.0. I've been winning ever since.
I took Andrew Tate's Alpha 3.0 course, and I've been winning ever since.
Yeah, no.
So I don't know. I think Patrick Bateman is, and you talked about like the guy on the street. I think that if you were to survey 100 people, and I'm okay with this, if you were to survey 100 people and say who's your favorite horror antagonist, you're gonna get Leatherfaces, you're gonna get Jasons, you're gonna get Mike Myers, you're gonna get Chucky, you're gonna get things like that, right? And that's okay. I think if you were to ask another room of 100 horror fans, you're still going to get those, but I think you're going to get things like Patrick Bateman. You're going to get you're going to get Valak. You're going to get Malthus from Insidious. You're going to get some unique ones, but like no one's thinking to pull those off the top of their head if they're a casual, right? And so this podcast is not meant for like the 100% horror enthusiasts. It's all, you can be a casual and still follow along, you know what I mean? But at the same time, I'm not making my picks based on like, oh, what are other people going to think is a good pick? You know what I mean?
Is that what you're accusing me of right now, Tally?
I mean, there's a little bit of playing it safe, I think, but that's fine.
No,
Yeah.
no, there's not. That's ridiculous.
Mine's Freddy Cougar. Oh,
I literally named my cat Leatherface, bro. Like my cat's name is.
I know how you picked him.
Leatherface. Like I play the game. I got the chainsaw on my desk over there. Like I got the fucking official game poster on my wall. Like I am.
I know that you love Leatherface.
It wasn't, but to say it's a safe pick is a little offensive, bro. Like I picked it because I love it. Like it would have been what I feel like you probably try to do is be like, oh, I'm gonna pick Patrick Bateman because I don't want to pick something simple and easy. I got to be a deep and yeah. If you're 5'4", you got to pretend like you're a lot deeper. Than
what would be like another Patrick Bateman-esque pick though?
I don't know.
That's what I'm
you
saying.
Watch more horror movies than me. Like I don't know.
It's true. Yeah.
Tell me. You probably know. You're like, oh, Jeepers.
No. So no, God, I cannot wait to crap on that movie. So no, I think that when I was thinking about this, I was originally going to pick Valak from the Conjuring series, The Nun, and Valak, Conjuring, yes. Valak is unique and interesting and cool, but when I break down Valak just looks badass, and it has good like jump scenes. Like I mean, it's just like it's a cool looking character. And when you take the reason Leatherface is a great pick, Bubba, is that he's not.
Can we just do? Okay, Bubba is not canon. That's something that's like
we know.
Really important to say. Like Bubba was the nickname or was the name of him in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, which was a dumpster fire, and it is not canon. So we resist Bubba, even though it's really easy to do because people on Twitch always call him Bubba. But go on, Tyler.
Yeah, so I'm saying that like the reason Leatherface, because I mean on the surface, Leatherface is also that same type of character. Looks cool, does badass stuff, and that could be just it if you didn't give him everything else that he has. So he's got the loyalty to his family. He shows that. You also see that the big scary monster is getting owned by his brothers. You know what I mean? Like so I feel like they made him complex enough to care.
Yeah, I think what I would say is that the depth of his character is acted out by the surrounding cast and the surrounding environment. Like I think that neither one of us is going to argue that Bubba is a shallow character.
No, I think he's
Leatherface is a shallow character, right? And like he doesn't have a single line of dialogue, right? So they had to create all that through the universe around him, which is like, and I'm also not going to sit here and pretend like Leatherface has the depth and complexity of Patrick Bateman.
Right. I think that might just be the taste, right? You might like, you might, I mean, and that's the other thing too, is like, the problem is, and I should tell the listeners, like Doug and I both watch a lot of horror movies. I watch sometimes 3 or 4 a day. I watch 4 or 5 a week religiously. And so like when I'm looking at like horror characters now, they have to have some type of attribute, past looking cool or a cool weapon or whatever, for me to get excited about it. And that's why I go back to something like Patrick Bateman, who's, you can see in that light of someone that is watching a lot of horror movies, how you're like, oh yeah, that one, that's cool. I like that a lot. That's different. It's unique. But it's still kind of scary, right? So
yeah. So I mean, ultimately, I think we both made really safe picks, really good picks. And I mean, I would argue that I win because more people know who Leatherface is than Patrick Bateman. Like, well,
not everybody's 13,000 hour horror main, and not everybody's a devotion 56 in horror. Sorry, I'm an elitist.
I'm gonna go ask Loretta at Safeway if she's heard of Patrick Bateman, and I'm gonna ask her if she's heard of Leatherface, and I would bet 1 million pennies that she's gonna have heard of Leatherface enough.
Yeah, and I'm gonna go, Loretta, why do you like Leatherface so much? Well, he's got that chainsaw, and he just revs it, and it terrified me when I was a teenager in the 70s. I'm gonna go, okay, thanks, Loretta. Thumbs up.
I love Loretta. She sounds hot, bro.
Yeah, but hey, real quick, you quizzed me last time, so I'm here to quiz you.
Oh, I'm bad at quizzes.
And we can edit this out later. That's fine. But Doug, Leatherface is based on a real life serial killer. 2-part question, because I know you know the first part. Who is that, and how many people did he kill?
Ed Gain was his name, and he
Mhm.
killed 262 people.
That is, you are fabricating that. Is that, are you
I
dead
don't.
serious about?
It is Ed Gain, but I don't remember how many people he killed.
Okay. So we can edit
He was.
this out later.
We don't have to edit it out. You can
I'm
make me
gonna,
look bad.
because I'm gonna flex on you real quick.
You don't have to. Why would you edit it? That's actually
Because
ridiculous. The
because
concept of you editing it out and that you like. That's what you want to do, bro. I
yeah.
told you. I told you. I'm going through some stuff, man. Like this is. I'm as vulnerable and as
Okay.
submissive as you're ever gonna find me right
So
now.
I'm
So
not
just do
typing
it.
anything, right? I'm not typing anything, right? Okay. I'm not typing anything. You're
Yeah,
seeing
you
this?
googled it before we started. That's fine. Just tell me.
Okay, great. Okay, so Ed Gein was born in 1906 in La Crosse County, Wisconsin. He moved with his family when he was 8 to Plainfield, Wisconsin, which is actually 6 miles
I knew
west of Plainfield, with his brother George, his mother Augusta, who was deeply religious, and his oh, excuse me, wait, yeah, his dad was named George. His brother's name was Henry. Okay. His dad died in 1940s of heart failure. His brother died in 1944 from mysterious circumstances in a bushfire. His mother died in 1945 from a stroke. He was caught in 1957 because on November 16th, 1957, first day of deer hunting season, he walked into Warden hardware store, Bernice Warden hardware store, and ordered a half gallon of antifreeze, and she wrote him a receipt. He shoots her in the back of the head when he asked to see a gun on display, right? And the police caught him because her son Frank came back and said, man, he's been acting weird around the shop. We should look into him. But then they had the receipt, Doug, and they saw that he was there. Then they went and looked at his house. In all, he killed Mary Hogan, who was a tavern worker, right, just on the outside of town, and then Bernice Warden. So he only had 2 victims, but when they went to his house, he actually grave robbed 9 graves. But what's weird is that he had 9 graves grave robbed, and he had 2 victims, but he had 12 skulls. They don't know where they came from. And sadly, he was trying to, the reason he correlates so well to Leatherface is he wasn't evil. He was trying to grave rob, right? But he was trying to recreate his mother's presence in his home, like desperately. And so that's what he's trying to do. But Wisconsin has weird dirt where it's got like sand and dirt combined. And so to not ruin the coffins, they would encase them in concrete sometimes. And his mom's was encased in concrete and he couldn't get to her. If he could, it might have saved a lot of people. 2 in particular.
So
Yeah, get shit on. I know.
Yeah, shut up, bro. I wish I could I could say I got a lot to unpack here, like Callie said earlier. Except that I was okay. So those of you, I'm sure there will be listeners that don't frequent the streams, especially Tally's, right? So they don't see Tally's live streams. But I was in Tally's live stream this morning while he was playing games on Twitch, and Tally he foreshadowed that he did his research on Ed Gein because he brought up Ed Gein. So I know what Tally did is he spent this last week preparing like it was a fucking middle school book report.
But I can also do this with Ted Bundy. I can do this with Jeff Dahmer. I can do this with Gacy.
And that's gonna be your role on this podcast, man. I'm the person that's funny and entertaining, and people know who I am, and you're the guy that has all the facts. You're the nerd in the corner.
I'm the resident expert. Okay, that's fine.
I'm
fine with that. Okay.
And I'm fine with bending the knee to your knowledge of horror because you're a very knowledgeable guy and you retain information very well, and you have a calendar and you have all these things.
This is so hard for me because you're being nice to me and like I wasn't prepared for that. I was prepared to fight today.
No, I'm not.
And I realize I'm caught you at a vulnerable time.
I am. I'm so weak. I'm so weak and frail. I can't believe we did this today. But you know what? I'm glad we did because that was a lot of fun, man. Seriously, that was a really fun talk and it was way better, I think, than our first talk. I think we're already fine.
So we both agree that Leatherface is great and Patrick Bateman's great. We're good with that? Okay, great picks.
We are.
Okay.
We are great picks. And again, like obviously we're not fighting with each other over it, like we're memeing. But the reality is it doesn't matter if more people know who Leatherface than Bateman is. They didn't make 7 American Psycho movies involving all kinds of ridiculous.
They would have ruined him too. Did you know that
they didn't ruin him? Quit while they were ahead.
American Psycho has a sequel. It wasn't meant to be a sequel, but it's with Mila Kunis and it's terrible. And so they stopped there. If they had made 20 years of those or 40 years of those, then I probably wouldn't be talking about Patrick Bateman today. I'd have to do the same thing. We got to freeze him in time. In the first movie, and he's amazing. Yeah. So. Yeah. But anyways, guys, if you have a favorite antagonist, leave it in the comments below. We will certainly revisit this topic because it's hard to pick just one, right? So we have multiple favorites. If you have any suggestions for future episodes, let us know in the comments below. And Doug and I both stream on Twitch, Running Man on Twitch and Tally Hobro on Twitch. And we will see you on the next episode of the Himbo Horror Podcast. Bye.